Joseph not only had dreams, but he was also a dream interpreter. We know about his interpretation of Pharaoh's dreams. But these were not the only dreams he interpreted. Joseph's faithfulness seems to be paying off for Joseph. And the captain of the guard realizes Joseph's value and puts him in charge of the two prisoners, the cupbearer and baker. The verse tells us that they have been in prison for a while, so again, it's not been a short period of time. These two prisoners each have a dream, but they were not sure what to make of them. But when Joseph arrives the next morning, he sees they were troubled. Joseph learns about the dreams and tells both men to explain the dreams to him, and he will pray. Joseph knew that God answered prayers, still does, and that God could reveal all things to him. The cupbearer goes first. He saw a grapevine in his dream. His vision will involve pressing grapes and giving the results to Pharaoh. The cupbearer explains further, and in the vine were 3 branches. And it was as though it budded, and her blossom shot forth. And the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes, and Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. And I took the grapes, and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup. And I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. Upon hearing of this dream, Joseph interprets the cupbearer's dream. The 3 branches are 3 days. And Joseph concluded that's how many days will pass before Pharaoh releases the cupbearer from prison and gives him his job back. Symbolically, to lift someone's head is to encourage or validate them. Therefore, the cupbearer will have his job. And reputation restored, his head will be lifted up and restored. Obviously, this is great news for the cupbearer. Joseph did not interpret the dream to get anything. But he does request of the cupbearer, when he gets released from prison, to remember him, not to forget what he has done, and mention him to Pharaoh. This should not be seen as unreasonable, as Joseph does not want to be in prison. He explains he should not be there, as he was stolen out of the land of the Hebrews and falsely imprisoned. When the baker heard this, he was optimistic and hopeful, so he, too, tells Joseph his dream. His dream involved him carrying 3 cake baskets on his head, which was common during this period of time. The top basket was full of all kinds of baked goods. But birds were eating Pharaoh's baked goods from the top basket above the baker's head. Joseph begins to interpret the dreams, explaining, the 3 baskets are 3 days. Like with the cupbearer, the baker's dream of baskets represented days. 3 baskets meaning 3 days. Unfortunately, for the baker, his dream did not hold optimism or hope as did the cupbearer's. For example, the baker's head will be literally removed from his body, which means the baker will be decapitated or executed. What is clear is that the man's corpse will be hung and left to be desecrated by scavenger birds. Scripture tells us that 3 days later, it was the king's birthday, so there was a lot of celebration. And like Joseph prophesied, the cupbearer was released, and the baker's head was held up for all to see. The cupbearer was forgiven, and he gave the Pharaoh his cup in his hand, but the baker was hung by his head. Although we are not told what their offenses were, it's fair to assume that the cupbearer's offense was not as dire as the baker's. While both of the men were pardoned, one was freed and the other received death. While Joseph had interpreted the cupbearer's dream, the man forgot about Joseph and did not mention his name to the Pharaoh. An important lesson that each of us can learn from Joseph is that all men that God uses greatly, He first prepares greatly. Let's further look at Spurgeon's words, this time from his sermon. Have you forgotten him? No single power or faculty of man escaped damage at the fall, while the affections were polluted. The will was made perverse. The judgment was shifted from its proper balance. and the memory lost much of its power and more of its integrity. Every observing mind will have noticed that naturally we have a greater power for remembering evil than good. Very plain is this in your children. If you mention anything good in their hearing, you would need to say it many times, and very plainly, before they are likely to remember it. But if one else shall casually meet their ear in the street, it will not be long before you have the pain of hearing them repeat it. Our memory is like theirs. Only in proportion as it is developed this peculiarity is more manifest. We have a most convenient warehouse for storing the merchandise of evil, but the priceless jewels of goodness are readily stolen from their casket. We have a fireproof safe for worthless matters, and enclose the rarest gems in mere pasteboard cases. Our memory, like a strainer, often suffers the good wine to pass through, but retains all the dregs. It holds the bad in an iron grasp, and plays with good till it slips through the fingers. Our memories, like ourselves, have done the things which they ought not to have done, and have left undone the things which they ought to have done, and there is no health in them. Among other things, it is not always easy to recollect our faults. We have special and particular reasons for not wishing to be too often reminded of them. Few men care to keep their faults in the front room of the house. Underground, in the darkest cellar, and, if possible, with the door locked, and the key lost, it is there, we would like to conceal our faults from ourselves. If, however, the grace of God has entered into a man, he will pray that he may remember his faults. And he will ask grace that if he should forget any excellences which he once supposed he had, he may not forget his defects, his sins, his infirmities, and his transgressions, but may have them constantly before him, that he may be humbled by them, and led to seek pardon for them, and help to overcome them. I do not say that the butler in this case had any work of grace in his heart, but I shall use him as an illustration, and hope by using my watchman's rattle to wake up some of your sleepy memories. For there are thieves about, and you are being robbed without knowing it. It will be a healthy result to us all if we shall be compelled to say at the end of this sermon, I do remember my faults this day in the first place this morning. Using the butler as our illustration, we shall state his faults secondly. We shall consider the circumstances which refreshed his memory, and, thirdly, we shall show the good points in his remembrance. Let's go to more dreams. This time to Pharaoh. 2 years has passed since the Pharaoh freed the cupbearer and restored his life, and executed the baker by execution of hanging. It has also been 2 years since the Pharaoh himself had a dream. Pharaoh's dream had him standing by the Nile River. Then out of the river come 7 cows, fine looking and fat, and they fed in the meadow. Then another 7 cows came up after them out of the river, ugly and gaunt, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the river. Research reveals that the 2 Hebrew phrases used here can literally be interpreted as terrible looking and thin of flesh. It was a life-like experience, and while it was a dream, it was also a message from God. Pharaoh wakes up and knows that the experience was not just a random event, and was troubled by it. After falling asleep, he has another dream. This time, he saw 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. The King James Version, which we typically use here on Diggin' Deeper, uses the word corn instead of grain, but during this period of history, corn did not exist. This does not mean that it's an error, but an example of how language can change things. As in the first dream, there were 7 cows, and another 7 came forth. Here, there are 7 crops of grain, or corn, and then another 7 ears thin and blighted by the east wind, so it appears the second set of 7 grain heads seen by Pharaoh look like they've been parched and ruined by this blasting desert wind.